What's up, YouTube? So bad news, good news. Here's the car in its current state. This is the donor again. I took the hood off, took the radiator out, and then I took the timing covers off because I wanted to look at the timing. The reason I wanted to look at the timing was because check the compression, and the compression was 160 on this side, and then about 125 or 130 on this side. So I assumed that's bad. It's not great. I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, the car will still run. It ran great. It maybe had a little bit of a rough idle, but I mean, that variance that you want between cylinders is around like 10%. So I mean, if this is 160 over here, the lowest these could be is like a 144, with it still being like a considered healthy motor. I had a feeling that this had happened because this entire side was lower. I imagine that maybe because it was in a front end accident and the timing belt cover was chipped on the driver's side, I imagine that maybe it skipped timing a little bit. Not enough to bend valves. So you like around 4 or 5 teeth, that's when you bend valves. But I just wanted to give it a little look, and I did. And it did skip a couple teeth. So if top dead center, or excuse me, it's not really top dead center, but if you're aligning all the marks, you want to align this mark right here with this. I can turn it and do that, but I mean, for this purpose, we don't really need to. So the line would line up right here. This line would line up here. That line was actually over here. So it was about 2.5, maybe 3 teeth off. So all I did was take the timing belt off, not all the way off, but on that side, remove the tensioner, remove one pulley so I get the timing belt off, reset it, and then recheck the compression. And now the compression is 155 on this side. So 155 on this side and 160 on the other. The motor's actually very, very healthy, considering that's a cold compression test as opposed to a warm one, like letting the car warm up and then turning it off and then checking the compression. And also it's got 170,000 miles on it. So I really expect it to be much worse. So really, really made out there. A few tips for changing a timing belt on a dual overhead cams. I mean, this may be WRX specific, but because I think the other ones have plastic pulleys, but they're kind of identical. One is, this is the tensioner here. So just to get the timing belt off, what I do is I remove the tensioner bolt here, take the tensioner out, and then I'll remove that pulley right there, that one. And then once you take the tensioner out, what you can do is, if you have a small drill bit or a small metal rod, I have a vise that I put that in the tensioner. So what I'll do is I'll compress it with the vise, just slowly. You don't just want to crank it. Slowly compress it down, and then I have a small drill bit, specifically this one, that I put into the hole to kind of hold it, and that way when I go to put the tensioner back in, I just pull that out once the tension's been, or once I want tension back. So what you want to do is you want to take those two off, align everything to where it needs to go, and then put this back in. So you put this one back in, and then over here, when I say align it, before these two will stay where they need to be because those are loose. Those aren't tense when you're at the, it's people call it top dead center, but it's really not top dead center. It's just where the pulleys need to be aligned, so pistons won't hit valves. So when you have everything lined up, the crank, these two pulleys and those two pulleys, these won't be under tension, so you can easily turn those. These are a different story. Like you only want to turn this one clockwise, and then the lower one counterclockwise. You could bend valves if you're turning them both the same way. I mean, you can bend valves even by hand, so you want to kind of watch that. But so with these, because they're under tension, there's pressure on them. When you go to turn it to where they need to be, it can snap back on you or snap forward on you really easy. So just getting it lined up is hard, especially when there's two that you have to worry about spinning on you and not holding their spot. So there's two different ways you can do that. You can get like this Allen key bit, two of them, and then kind of make like a rod in between them, like get a brace and kind of hold them together. What I do personally is I just take, and this is plastic on the bottom, so you have to watch it. I take vice grips once they're where they need to be, and I just clamp these two together, not hard, but I clamp them together right here. That way they'll stay in their designated spot, and then I bring the timing belt around. So again, you put the tensioner back on, vice clamp that down, put the belt exactly where it needs to go. Now you have the issue of fitting the rest of the belt on. So it's going to be loose right here. So you have to put this last pulley on. What I do is I pull this belt. This belt will be off because obviously there's not going to be tension on it right here. So this pulley will be gone and this belt will be kind of dangling down. I put this pulley in, but I only turn it like 2 or 3 turns. And then what I do is I bring the belt up. And because this pulley's only in like 2 or 3 turns, it's really wobbly. So it gives me a lot more room to put the timing belt on. And then I crank, and then it's tough. You got to really pull it on there. Then after that, I crank this pulley down. And that's all there is to it. I've done like 20 or 30 timing belt installs. I would never recommend reusing stuff. The only reason I'm reusing this right here was because I didn't want to buy a timing belt kit and then put everything on and then realize the compression was just shot on that side. 130 and 160, it's pretty bad. It's not like you don't run the motor at all, but it's like it's on its way out. So I just wanted to reuse the components that it had here. I will be replacing the timing belt. I'll probably have a better video of that because I'll probably put it up on, when I take the motor out, put it up on stands and kind of go through it. But you definitely need a new tensioner, all new pulleys, definitely a new belt. Water pump is kind of, sometimes I change it, sometimes I don't, depending on how the car's running. I may change the water pump. I may not. I haven't decided yet. Either way, I'll have an extra one because it'll come with the kit. But so that's the current state. Motor's running great. Drove the other day for probably about 10, 15 miles. This is before I did the timing belt fix here, if you will. It ran great. I mean, even with probably runs even better now. But motor felt great. It was probably just as fast. I mean, it has a few mods as like my NAT a setup that I had previously. The turbocharged Gc8. Probably just as good. It just felt different driving because there's a difference when you feel a car that is kind of meant to have a turbo. I don't know how else to describe that. It just felt more fluid, like it was used to it. The transmission shifts great, no grinding. He has a new clutch and flywheel on there, or the person who I bought it from put a new clutch and flywheel on there, so it feels great. The next step would be, I haven't decided yet if I want to tackle this first or if I want to tackle the interior. But again, I'm stripping this barren. So not barren. I mean, I'll keep the stuff that I don't need, I won't remove the stuff like the headlights or the side markers or the fenders or the doors or any of the back interior. But what I'll probably end up doing is removing the exhaust, and then I may try to remove the motor first. And with that said, I may try to remove the motor and the transmission in one piece, just because that'll make it easier. If I can do that, I've put a motor and a transmission in together before, but I've never taken one out before. So I'm not really worried about hitting the front. That's the only thing you ever have to worry about. It's kind of hard putting it in because you could I can just bash into this. I don't care. I mean, as long as it doesn't hurt the motor, I'm not keeping this car, so that doesn't matter to me. So I'll remove the motor probably, and then what I'll do is once the motor's out, it's not obviously dropping right into that. I'll have it off to the side for at least probably a week or two while I do the rest of it, and then I'll remove the wiring next, then attach the wiring from the engine bay, and then work my way back to the dash, and then once I remove the dash, all that wiring as well. And then I'll start putting the wiring into that car, putting the dash, heater core, blower motor into the other car as well, and kind of go from there. I'm trying to record as much as I can. Again, it's difficult because I come out here and I'm just anxious to really start jamming stuff, and it's hard for me to hold my phone up and do it, especially because the car doesn't have a hood. And before, I would kind of rest the phone on the hood so you can kind of see as I'm going through. But I'll record as much as I can just to keep everyone updated. But that's the current update. Motor is stout, running great. Transmission is great. This looks like a good donor. So that's awesome. It sounds like maybe there's in terms of like suspension and brakes, I could just reuse the ones I have because I already have WRX brakes I did a swap before, so I could just reuse that and the hubs as well. It sounds like there's a bearing issue on one of these anyway. Here, like a wobble. So I may reuse that, but I'm not using the suspension, or excuse me, the struts or the coilovers. I'll probably end up just using like the subframe, the trailing arms, sway bars, all that kind of stuff. The good part about could be good, could be bad, is the good part about this wagon is that it actually has the same wheelbase as an older wagon as well. So it's kind of one for one there. If I got a sedan, which I did before, it's a wider wheelbase. So, I mean, that's good for tracking and stuff like that. I mean, it's good, but I used to have wheel rub like a lot because the wheels would poke out a little bit and obviously hit the fender. So this is perfect. Yeah, I'm really happy with what we have so far. I'm going to start selling stuff off of this car. So the seats, I'll try to make my money back right now after I sold stuff and bought stuff. I'm sitting at, I think 1,600 is the last thing I said. 1,600 in the hole because this car was $2,300. I sold the old turbo kit for $700, the whole kit. So that brings me down to $1,600. I'm going to see if I can break even or how much this job is going to cost. That way, at the end of it, people who have the question of whether they want to do this or not can kind of answer it for themselves. So, all right, YouTube, that's the update for now.